Good morning, church, and a Happy New Year to you all. This has been an amazing Advent season, and we have enjoyed every piece and part of it. But today is a new year, new hope, and a new beginning. So we're going to invite you to come and worship with us as we sing to our Savior and our King.
Good morning, Foothill. Happy New Year. I am not, as you can see, back in Oroville just yet. We're still in Idaho due to what I think you would call inclement weather. So please do be in prayer for me and for our family as we will be traveling back on Sunday, which is, I guess, today, as you're watching this, most of you. Also, just a quick couple of announcements or updates before I get into my very short message today. Number one, because people have asked, if you have year-end gifts and you're afraid you missed the deadline, if you wanted to give a tithe or an offering or give to missions or the Axiom or anything like that we give to or partner with, you actually can still give and have it count for 2022 if your check is dated 2022 and it is in the office by the 3rd, that's Tuesday, and it goes into our books that day. That will all go into 2022. If you want to give online, that as of midnight, or 12 midnight and 1 second, I guess, that automatically has to go into this year legally. So that's 2023. But any other kind of giving, if you date your check accordingly, it will actually go into 2022. So if that's important to you for tax reasons or whatever, and you're giving a check, make sure you date it correctly, or there's nothing we can do about it. We like to, follow the law. A couple of things I want to update you on besides that. Kids Night Out is coming up. Need lots of help for that. That's in a couple weeks. So if you'd like to volunteer for that one night, it's very well put together. It's easy to volunteer. Get a hold of Maddie or Pastor Katie, or again, call the office or comment here. Also want to let you know we are getting back in person on January 8th. That's next Sunday. Regular time and everything. But I also have some cool news. We're doing baptisms that day, which is very exciting. And there's still room if you would like to be baptized, or if somebody you know is interested in baptism, or your kids are interested in baptism. Please let me know as soon as possible. Comment on this video or any of the other ways you know to get a hold of us. And we will connect with you between now and then and give you the lowdown on what it means to be baptized and what the process is and kind of how we do that. And so let me know, and we will include you. So I'm going to try to be brief. I do my best. 10 minutes. I have a timer. I'm going to try and do this in 12 minutes. So it's Sunday, January 1st, 2023. Can you believe it? We say that every year, right? Like, can you believe it's the next year? Did you know that Foothill's entering our 70th year as a church here in Oroville? And I think we are just as vibrant, just as alive, just as passionate in our mission as ever. And that mission, of course, is the Great Commission. It's to make disciples, teaching them to obey everything Jesus commanded us. And we exist, which you should know by now, we exist so that all may know the love, grace, and freedom that's found only in Jesus. And I am just super pumped. I'm very excited to step into this next calendar year. But as a church, we run our kind of ministry year more along the school calendar. So it is a new year, as in January 1st, 2023. But for Foothill, we're just in a new session of a new year. We're right in the middle. It's session 2 of our year of increase, where we're focused on increased commitment and increased faith and increased impact in our community and around the world. And the reason that's important, that it's a new session, is this. Later this month, I think it's the 21st or 18th, I don't know, it's a Saturday, third Saturday of the month, we have our ministry orientation. You're going to be hearing lots about that between now and then. But if you are interested, not committing, but interested in serving in any team, including some new teams we have for emergency response and security and some other things, any team though, worship, whatever team, if you're interested, that's the day we do our ministry orientations, which are just like 1 to 2 hour seminars, and there'll be a lunch where you can pick the one you want to go to or go to a couple, and then you hear all about the ministry and what's required, and then you can decide if you want to commit for this session. And this session runs through the end of May, so it's just like a 5-month commitment. Then in the summer we have kind of our summer session or rest time, so please be aware of that. So in keeping with that, we finished our Advent series, our Expectant or Expecting Christmas series, and we're moving into a new series next week, which we are calling Sales. Sales is where we'll be preaching through the biblical foundation of the 8 guiding values, guiding foundational pieces of what we believe as a church locally, and also the 8 kind of cultural non-negotiables we have. But this is what makes up our culture. So each week for January and February, we'll be doing one of each. One guiding value that we hold and have held for some time now, and one cultural piece of this is who we are. This is how we live out those principles. That's the culture piece. So we're in between series, which means I'm going to do a really cool pastor thing. I'm going to pick the low-hanging fruit for my sermon today and talk about the concept of a New Year's resolutions. I don't know if you've ever made a resolution, if you're a resolution maker, maybe you're a resolution breaker. It's okay. I'll tell you in a minute how many people actually are. It's a big number. You'll be amazed. I am a huge goal setter. I'm big on goals. I'm big on that kind of thing. But I don't think I'm thinking about this. I don't know that I've ever tied them to New Year's. Maybe you do, but it is something that a lot of people do in our culture here in America and probably around the world. I don't know. But I was really interested in this. And so I did some quick research on the internet. And you know the internet's just always right. That's sarcasm. But I looked at a few studies, and these are the numbers I found that seem to be pretty accurate. I actually have these written behind the phone I'm recording on, so I'm going to read these. So about 56% of people in the United States every year make a New Year's resolution, at least one. 48% of those are health or exercise related. That's not a shock. But listen to this. Only 9% of people have reported that they kept their resolution. That means 91%, 9 of 10, do not keep it. And that's interesting enough, but here's my favorite stat. Get this. 64% of people say that they expect to fail in their resolution by February, which sort of begs the question, right? Is that really, how much resolve are you showing? Is that really a resolution, or is it just kind of a wish? Like, this year, I wish I would be healthier. But it's not really a resolution if you're saying, I will fail in 3-4 weeks. And here's another stat that I think is really, really interesting. If you take that 9%, which they did, they took the 9% of people who say, yes, I kept my resolution, and they said, hey, we have to ask you a few follow-up questions. Here's the one that I thought was fascinating. So of the 9% who do keep their resolution, right, they reported that they failed, messed up, or slipped up in their resolve an average of 14 times, not in 1 year, but over 2 years, and then remade the resolution over 2 years before falling into a successful habit or rhythm or having success, or what I would call victory. Which is interesting because I think that means that if you want to have a sustainable change in your life, the people that are having that aren't innately better than you at it. They're not exerting more willpower than you. They don't have a better plan they're executing. They may have all those things, but the main key is that they persevere. They stay committed, which is what we call resolve, right? Our goal, any goal we have as a believer, needs to first be led of God. That is to say that we should seek to do the things God, God is calling us toward. We should make the changes He is telling us to make through the Bible and through prayer and through interaction with other believers, dare I say on occasion through sermons. And that's a key factor, but there's another big key that I want to talk about today, and that's this key of perseverance. I got 7 minutes left to stick to my 12 minutes. Let's see if I can do it. Noah in the Bible, Noah spent decades building the ark before a drop of rain fell. Abraham spent decades waiting for the promised heir that God said he would have. Israel waited centuries for a king and centuries again for a Messiah, and the New Testament is full of stories. In fact, you could probably argue that every Jesus follower, every God follower, every believer in the New Testament had to persevere through persecution or doubt or struggle or hardship. And in fact, every believer since then to this day, raise your hand if you're included in that. I certainly am. We're lucky because there are a lot of Bible passages dealing with adversity and perseverance, including James chapter 1, which is a very well-known one, and the one I'm low-hanging fruit today, I told you, but it's still really good. It's God-breathed, it's the Bible, it's really appropriate for today. And here's what it says. When troubles of any kind come your way, consider it an opportunity for great joy. For you know that when your faith is tested, your endurance has a chance to grow. So let it grow, for when your endurance is fully developed, you'll be perfect and complete, needing nothing. If you need wisdom, ask our generous God, and He will give it to you. He will not rebuke you for asking, but when you ask Him, be sure that your faith is in God alone. Do not waver, for a person with divided loyalty is as unsettled as a wave of the sea that is blown and tossed by the wind. Such people should not expect to receive anything from the Lord. Their loyalty is divided between God and the world, and they're unstable in everything they do. Believers who are poor have something to boast about, for God has honored them, and those who are rich should boast that God has humbled them. They will fade away like a little flower in the field. The hot sun rises and the grass withers. The little flower droops and falls, and its beauty fades away. In the same way, the rich will fade away with their achievements, but God blesses those who patiently endure testing and temptation. And then He says this, afterward, they will receive the crown of life that God has promised to those who love him. Notice that James, right at the start, right? We got 5 minutes left, maybe 7. We'll do our best. Notice that James says when hardship comes or our endurance or perseverance is tested, that there's a chance for it to grow. Not that it will grow, but that we have a chance for it to grow. And so that obviously the question is, well, how, James, how do we do that? How do we ensure that it grows? I want perseverance to grow in my heart and in my life as I follow Jesus and go after the things he's called me to. Well, he explained it. Hopefully you can pull that up. Pause the video, pull up James 1, because I don't have slides. I'm not doing fancy production today because I'm not home, even though I thought I would be. So this is all just on my phone, which reminds me, thank you so much, Ross Clark. I'm sending this to Ross, and Ross is putting everything together. So I'm very appreciative of that. So here's what it says. He gives us the 3 steps, right? He says, pray for wisdom, put your faith in God alone, and do not waver. And really, that's 3 parts of one big whole. It's 3 little sections of really one huge step, 3 tiny parts of one big step. What he's telling us to do if we want to grow in perseverance is this: pray for wisdom. That means ask God what to do. Ask God for the next steps. Ask God for power and strength to succeed. And then number 2, put your faith in God alone. This means once you have received wisdom from God, follow it. I know it sounds crazy. Do what God is telling you to do. Do not hedge. Do not look for other options. Don't look to the things the world says will help you get there. Listen to God and God alone. Don't try the shortcuts that are conceived of man. And number 3, don't waver, which means stick to it, which means don't give up when you fail. Don't go back. Don't go back to step 2 and look at the wrong things or start to look around and go, God, it hasn't happened. I prayed and I committed to only you, and it's been 15 minutes and you haven't changed my problem, right? It takes some time. In fact, it takes sometimes days or years or decades or even an entire lifetime, which is why it ends with James saying that we receive the crown of life in the next life, not this one. Oftentimes, and lots of times, probably most of the time, God brings the change in us that he wants to use and enact in the world for his kingdom. He brings it in this life because he wants to use it in this life to help others come in to know him. But for some things, we don't receive that until this life is over. So we persevere right up until that last day. So, pray for wisdom, do what God says and only what God says, and don't waver even when you mess up. Get back up, keep running after that which God's placed before you. The prophet Isaiah told us this in chapter 40. Have you not heard? Do you not understand? The Lord our God is the everlasting God. He is creator of all the earth. He never grows weary or weak. No one can measure the depths of his understanding. He gives power to the weak and strength to the powerless. Even youths will become weak and tired, and young men will fall in exhaustion. But those who trust in the Lord will find new strength. They will soar high on wings like eagles. They will run and not grow weary. They will walk and not grow faint. Here at Foothill, if you are new and don't know this, I always give you next steps. And they're always being, doing, and going. What am I being? What is God asking me to do? And where do I go with that? And so here's be, do, and go for this week. Number 1, be praying. Be a person of prayer. Ask God for wisdom this year. Forget all your resolutions. Forget all the things you want to do accomplish. Sit down and say, God, what do you want from me this year? God, what do you want to do in my walk with you? What do you want to do in my character? What do you want to do in my brain? Is there something I need to learn, some schooling I need? God, what do you want to do in my finances? God, what do you want to do in my relationships? What do you want to do in my body and with my health? All these things, you take them to God and God alone. So pray. That's your step this week. Begin to do that. Today, begin to do that. That is your step number 1, being. Number 2, doing. Only listen to God. That doesn't mean sit in a closet and ignore the world. It means consider what God is saying and only seek him. Now that comes through the reading of the word. It comes through interaction with other believers. It comes through prayer. It comes through things like sermons or maybe reading spiritual books or commentaries. Those are all good. But make sure that the bottom line is I'm seeking what God has. So don't ever listen to my sermon and go, I do what my pastor says. As much as I would love that for everybody to do what I say, we'd be in big trouble if everybody just did what I say. Take what I'm saying, test it against God, test it against the Word, ask God to illuminate the parts that are true and take out the parts that I have messed up, and follow that, okay? Just make sure you do that. And number 3, go and persevere. You're going to fail. I mean, spoiler alert, you will fail in a lot of these things at times, but anything worth doing is worth doing poorly at first. So you're going to fail, but you have to persevere. Remember, 9 out of 10 people fail in their New Year's resolutions, not because their plan stinks, but because they have less willpower, but because they give up the first time they fail. And those who succeed, that 9 out of 100, they fail over and over again, but they keep getting back up and they keep trying. And that's a godly thing, to persevere. We're going to close, as we always do, with the Great Commission. It might be weird being online only, but let's do it anyway. We always use this as our benediction at Foothill, and we'll continue to do it until we've completed it. So Jesus, before he ascended to heaven, after he'd lived, died, crucified, buried, came back from the dead, hung out for 5-6 weeks, gathered his closest believers, and he told them, you're going to have to persevere. Right? You're going to have to persevere. I'm going back to heaven, but I've been given all authority in heaven and earth, and through the Holy Spirit, I'm giving it to you. And then he said this, say it with me if you know it right there at home or wherever you are listening. He said, therefore go, make disciples of all nations, baptizing them in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit, and teaching them to obey everything I've commanded you. And surely I'm with you always, to the very end of the age. I am excited to get home. I'm excited to see y'all this week. And of course, Sunday, I'll see you, all of you. God bless you. Have a great start to your 2023.